In the fall of 1943, Peggy Seal and Billy Harris exchanged vows in a modest ceremony in Florida. With wartime scarcity limiting their options, Peggy wore her Vernon High School class ring instead of a traditional wedding band. The young couple, rich in love but short on funds, looked forward to building a life together despite the challenges ahead. Neither could have imagined that their marriage would last just 6 weeks, before Billy's departure would launch Peggy into a 7-decade search for answers. Peggy and Billy's love story began at Atlas Air Force Base in Oklahoma, where 18-year-old Peggy worked as an electrical instrument mechanic, the only woman in a male-dominated department. Billy's father, who supervised the propeller department where Peggy worked, saw something special in the confident young woman who had bucked convention to serve her country during wartime. An opening in the production control office came up, so I took that job, Peggy later recalled. Billy's father was assistant manager of the propeller department. Soon after I arrived, he wanted me to write to his son, who was a student pilot. Peggy initially refused. I let him know that I did not write to men I didn't know, particularly servicemen, she said. But Billy was persistent, and soon letters began arriving regularly from San Antonio, where he was training. Through their correspondence, a deep connection formed, one based on character, values, and shared dreams rather than physical attraction. When they finally met in person, the chemistry was immediate. All of a sudden, the door to the airplane opened, and there was Billy Harris saying, "Hello, Peggy," she remembered, and that was about it. The rest, as they say, was history. The newlyweds' happiness was short-lived. After just 6 weeks of marriage, Billy completed his pilot training with the U.S. Army Air Corps and received his commission as a second lieutenant. His country needed him, and despite the heartbreak of separation, both Peggy and Billy understood their duties. At a hotel in Tallahassee, officers' wives received solemn instructions. Our husbands would not be coming back, but we would not tell that our husbands had left the United States. Not until we heard they were safely at their destination, Peggy later explained. Billy was assigned to fly P-51 Mustangs over the English Channel, a dangerous but crucial mission during the Allied campaign in Europe. His skill and courage earned him the Distinguished Flying Cross and 2 air medals. By July 1944, having completed nearly 100 missions, Billy received welcome news. He was being sent home. The communication that followed would haunt Peggy for decades. First came a telegram declaring Billy missing as of July 7th. Yet Peggy had letters from him dated after that date. Confused and distraught, she took the telegram and Billy's letters to the telegraph office demanding answers. Later, they came up with missing in action on July 17th, she recalled. I was told not to be concerned, that no doubt he was being processed. Billy's parents and Peggy chose to believe the most hopeful scenario, that he was recovering in a hospital somewhere, perhaps suffering from amnesia. But as months passed without word, hope dimmed. By March 1945, Peggy feared the worst, but refused to accept it without proof. She contacted the International Red Cross, only to be told, "We cannot afford to look into this because he will come home before we can get an answer." Undeterred, Peggy reached out to Texas Congressman Ed Gossett, hoping his influence might uncover information the military seemed unwilling or unable to provide. A years turned into decades, and still Peggy persisted. Some reports claimed Billy was missing, others declared him dead. The conflicting information only strengthened her resolve to discover the truth, whatever it might be. By 2005, Billy's status remained unresolved. During a speech, Congressman Mac Thornberry referred to Billy as MIA, missing in action, an error that underscored how little was known about his fate, even at the highest levels of government. "They said it is our duty as journalists to expose politicians," Peggy said of the media storm that followed. "They used me to get at Mac Thornberry, and they were putting this out all over the United States, virtually all over the world." Thornberry apologized for the mistake, but Peggy remained gracious. "They got Mac illegally. It was not right," she said, refusing to be used as a political pawn, while still searching for answers about her husband. The breakthrough came through Billy's cousin, Alton Harvey. While searching military databases, Harvey discovered that someone else had recently inquired about Billy, a woman from France. This puzzling detail became the key that would finally unlock the mystery. Records showed that Billy had been granted permission to return home in July 1944 after completing his tour of duty. However, the transport ship was filled with wounded soldiers, forcing Billy to wait for the next available passage. Rather than remaining idle, he volunteered for additional missions. On what would be his final flight, Billy's P-51 Mustang was shot down over the northern French town of Levant. Facing a split-second decision, Billy made the ultimate sacrifice. Rather than ejecting to save himself, he directed his failing aircraft away from the town, crashing into a nearby forest to avoid civilian casualties. The French woman who had searched for information about Billy was Valérie Quesnel, a resident of Les Ventes. She had been researching the American pilot who had saved her town as the 60th anniversary of their liberation approached. For decades, the people of Les Ventes had honored the memory of the brave pilot who sacrificed his life for theirs. Without knowing his background, they had assumed he was French-Canadian. They buried him with respect and continued to decorate his grave, keeping his memory alive even when his identity remained a mystery. Billy's final resting place was the Normandy American Cemetery and Memorial. When Peggy finally learned the truth, she traveled to France to be near her long-lost love. According to locals, Billy's grave became the most decorated in all of Normandy, a testament to the impact of his sacrifice on those whose lives he saved. For Peggy, discovering Billy's fate brought a measure of peace, though she dismissed the notion of closure. People who speak of closure are people who have never experienced anything like this, she said. Despite the tragedy, Peggy's devotion never wavered. She remained faithful to the memory of the young pilot she had married so many years before, visiting his grave regularly and keeping his spirit alive through her unwavering love. "Billy was married to me all of his life," she declared, "and I choose to be married to him all of my life." In the end, Peggy and Billy's story transcends the tragedy of war and separation. It stands as a powerful testament to love's endurance across time and distance, a love that survived 7 decades of uncertainty and continues to inspire all who hear it. Texas Representative Mark Thornberry perhaps said it best. Peggy and Billy Harris's love for each other, their love for our country, and their personal sacrifices are huge. This is a beautiful and inspirational true story of commitment, courage, and ordinary people living extraordinary lives. They truly are our greatest generation.